point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 598th, I think it's 598th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf. Nancy is not in again today. Nancy is very fun to have here, but she has had something going on in the last few weeks. Okay, we're going to start out. Before we start, I should tell you all about the show. This show has 21 news articles, which are taken from my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can go to that place and find the links to the stories that I'm talking about by going to the calendar, clicking on the date. We're starting on the 31st of October, which is a week ago today being the 7th of November. And you can click on the date, and then that will lead you to usually 15 articles, sometimes 10, 11, whatever, but usually 15 articles, and then you just go through those. Or you can take the easy way out, which is to go into the description of the show, which should be down lower, and look at the description, and it ends with a link to a place that Tom Fennell and I used to use for developing the show. And that is a list basically of just the 21 articles that are used, and they are in order, and they include the pictures and the links. So we're starting on the 31st of October, as I said, and our first article is from Renews. This is a picture of the 40-mile wind farm, which is in Alberta. The title of the article is 280 megawatt 40-mile wind farm begins power generation. Acciona Energia has begun injecting clean power into the grid from its 40-mile wind farm in southern Alberta. The 280 megawatt project, which is progressing as planned, will be completed in the first quarter of 2025. The 40-mile wind farm is about 50 kilometers southwest of Medicine Hat. I always thought that Medicine Hat was a really kind of a cool name for a city. 65,000 people, I forget how many are there, but there are a lot of people in Medicine Hat. One of the things that's interesting about this particular article to me is that the Western Canadian provinces, for the most part, don't have a reputation of thinking kindly about renewable energy. And I believe that Alberta is one of those. So it's interesting to see, it's always interesting to see a wind farm coming up in Western Canada. But anyway, we will go on, and the next thing I've got, that's a picture of Mount Fuji in Japan. Let me get a close-up. This is a picture of Mount Fuji in August, and the summit of Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is a volcano, and it is still active. The top of it has a like many volcanoes, has a caldera. I think it's called a caldera. I might be wrong about that. But from a distance, it looks flat. Now, in this particular picture, it is occluded by a little bit of cloud. And the cloud is not smoke, it's just cloud, I think. Nevertheless, there is no snow at the top of this mountain because the picture was taken in August. And Mount Fuji, pictures of Mount Fuji usually have snow on the top. And the snow usually is there, well, it's there most of the year. And the snows usually come in in September or October. This article is from ABC News. The title of it is Japan's Mount Fuji Breaks Record for No Snow in October. And I want to point out before I read the synopsis that that I believe there was snow in October at Mount Fuji, right at the very end. This article appeared on the 31st of October, and it might have been written on the 29th or the 30th, but I think there was just a little bit of snow at the top of Mount Fuji at the end. However, the synopsis says this: Mount Fuji, a 12,000-foot peak on the Japanese island of Honshu, is still lacking any measurable snow, extending a record for no snow in October, according to the Japan Meteorological Agency. Climate change may be the cause of the unseasonably warm temperatures. I think climate change is almost certainly the cause. We have unseasonably warm temperatures all over the world. And I want to point one thing out about that. If we have a stable climate, the climate is going to be, let me put it this way. If we have a stable climate, that means we're going to be setting records regularly for both heat and cold in about even numbers. We have 8,000 meteorological stations in the United States, so I would expect any given day to have records, very likely have records for that date. So we're constantly setting records. But the records are not evenly distributed between warm and cold. We still set cold records for cold temperatures. But in the United States, we're setting about 10 records for hot temperatures for every one record we set of cold temperatures. So the idea of saying it's record cold, clearly climate change is not happening, is just not good thinking. Now, in this case, Mount Fuji being snow-free throughout October is very unusual. It's a record. It could happen even if we were going into a cooling period. But it's one of many records, many records that are being set. We aren't setting very many records for cold temperatures. We are setting records for hot temperatures. Okay, we are come to, whoops. I know. There we go. We come to a picture of a generic North Sea wind farm, and news from Renews. This article is titled, RWE Bags Offshore Construction Permit for Thor. I'm pronouncing that in English. It would probably be Tor. Nevertheless, it looks right to say it Thor. RWE has been awarded a permit from the Danish Energy Agency, allowing it to carry out offshore construction activity for its 1,100 megawatt Thor project. RWE now has all permits to start construction work at sea in spring of 2025. Work on land is already well advanced. Well, they expected to get their construction permit, so they started the land work early. So we are up to Friday, November 1st. We have a picture. This picture I find very perplexing, and I don't understand what's going on here, but I'll get into that. This is from Renews. The title is RWE and Rivian signed Texas Wind PPA. PPA is a power purchase agreement. RWE signed a power purchase agreement with EV maker Rivian for power from an upgraded wind. That explains it. I should have noticed that. Wind project in Texas. The 15-year PPA has electricity from RWE's 127 megawatt championed wind facility in Nolan and Mitchell counties to supply Rivian's fast-changing network with some of the renewable energy it will use. Now, the renewable energy from this wind farm is going to be used by Rivian for making electric vehicles. Now, why did I find that perplexing? You see a crane here between two wind turbines, and you can see the bases of those wind turbines very close together. In fact, if those wind turbines were operating that close together, their blades would be clashing, I'm sure. You look at the length of the blades going down, and you can see they would be clashing. In fact, the blades on the one that's on the right side might even hit the nacelle of the one on the left. This is a wind turbine facility that is being upgraded. And in this particular case, the slightly taller, somewhat bigger wind turbine on the right of those two has a different shape to its nacelle than the one which is a little bit lower and has shorter blades, the one on the left. What's happening here is the one on the right is being installed and the one on the left is being removed. So that explains why they're so close together, because they're not going to be close together very long. The lower one is going to be gone. Nevertheless, I think you can see why I was feeling perplexed about that particular photograph, because those two wind turbines, you can see the bases of both of them. And I'm sure that the photographer wanted to do that. So there it is. Now you know everything I know. You don't have to watch the rest of the show. Okay, I'm kidding. Just in case you didn't know. The next item, we are up to Friday. Oh, I already said we're up to Friday, November 1st. That one was from Friday, November 1st. We have an item now from Clean Technica. And, whoops, what did I do? There I go. I'm not professional, you know, I just do this as a volunteer, as a hobbyist, so I'm not any good. This is from Clean Technica. Yes, and in this picture is labeled Biggest EV. The title of this article is "The World's Largest Electric Vehicle is Ready for its Close-Up." EV sightings are getting to be a dime a dozen in many parts of the United States. It's time for other bigger pieces of the transportation electrification puzzle, glad I could say that, to fall into place. That includes powerful locomotives, the monstrous pieces of machinery that pull trains as long as a mile or more. Believe me, trains, freight trains, can be 2 miles long. And in fact, I saw one of the most remarkable trains I ever saw was a train that was probably, it might have been close to a mile, and it didn't have any cars. It was made up entirely of locomotives. It was being pulled by a couple of locomotives. I don't remember whether it was 2 or 3. They were steam locomotives, and it was pulling steam locomotives that were being taken out of the yards in Chicago, and I have no idea where they were going. They might have been going to, well, they were going west from Chicago. You could take your pick of what city they were going to. This particular locomotive is capable, this is an all-electric locomotive, and it's capable of pulling trains, freight trains, a mile long, and it's being put into use. I think it's being tested, actually, but they're progressing with this. Locomotives have been around for a long time that have been powered by overhead lines, and they've been around doing that for a long time. But when you get out west, you get into places where there aren't any overhead lines, and the locomotives have been diesel for a long time. Before that, they were coal powered. I used to love those coal powered locomotives. I'd hear them go by in the night. It was very reassuring to hear that steady sound of the coal powered. Not entirely good. Every once in a while, an ember would come out and set a field on fire or something like that. But, you know, for a little kid, I didn't think about that until I was walking home and went through such a field. All right, it's time for the next item. And the next item is this. That's a coal-fired power plant in China. This is from a publication called Context News. The caption is, the title is, "Why is China upping coal power despite green energy boom?" The world pledged to wean itself off coal to slow the pace of climate change. So why is China, already the world's top producer and consumer of coal, upping its output? That is to say, increasing the amount coming from its mines. China mined a record 4.7 billion tons of coal in 2023, and it is opening mines to produce 1 billion tons more. Well, China has multiple problems, and one of them is that it has a constantly increased need for electricity. I reported on this show just a few years ago that the last Chinese village that had no electricity had got electricity. That didn't mean every family in the village got electricity. That just means that somebody or something in the village got electricity. Maybe the barber shop or the post office or something, but something or someone got electricity, and that meant that the village had electricity. And by having electricity, what I mean here is that it's on the grid. This is not counting off-grid electricity. China is still increasing the amount of demand, and it is installing renewable power, wind power and solar power and other kinds of renewable power at a very high speed, but its power demands are going up faster. So it's still increasing coal demand, and it is still opening new coal mines. That is, according to them, not going to go on for very long, and they will be reducing their use of coal starting a year or two from now, 3 years at the most. So that's what's going on. We are up to Saturday, November 2nd, and we have another picture from China. In this case, it is a solar project by China Three Gorges. Three Gorges is an energy company that's named after the Three Gorges Dam, or it's named after the Three Gorges that this Three Gorges Dam is named after. Anyway, this is from PV Magazine International. The title is Three Gorges unveils 16.5 gigawatts renewable energy plan in China. China's state-owned Three Gorges Energy announced plans to invest in a massive integrated renewable energy base in the Taklamakan Desert. Sorry, I botched that. In the Xinjiang region, and I mispronounced that too because I don't know how to pronounce Chinese. Sorry. The investment for the whole project is projected to be equivalent to about $10.09 billion. I will point out that that is something in the neighborhood of 65 cents a watt, which is shows you that the price of renewable energy has gone down. That area that you see there, the blue part of it, is a solar farm. And it just covers the tops of mountains. Okay. Now we have an item from Renews. I'm going to put it up. This is, the picture is an installation vessel from Dominion Energy. And the title of the article is Dominion Wraps Up First CVOW Installation Campaign. Dominion Energy reported that 78 monopile foundations and 4 offshore substation foundations were installed for the coastal Virginia offshore wind project during the first season of installation. At 2,600 megawatts, CVOW, which is the coastal Virginia offshore wind, is the largest offshore wind project under construction in the United States. Now, I have a note here, which is that we have with 78 monopile foundations installed, there are 98 foundations still to install. This is going to be an ongoing project. One of the things that I keep coming to, I watched on a day-to-day basis the installation of a fairly large offshore wind farm off the north coast of Wales several years ago. And what I found, kind of to my astonishment, was that they were installing, I think it was 100 turbines or something like that. They were planning on having that installed over the course of one summer season, by which I mean starting in the late spring and ending probably in the fall. And the idea of what they were doing, was installing one turbine every day, basically. And that's just an incredible amount of work getting done at pace, at budget. And, you know, at the same time, I was watching a nuclear installation, and it was taking 22 years. It was supposed to take 10, but, you know, thermal installations, that is to say, gas, coal, oil, nuclear, very often, especially nuclear, take far more time than their builders say they will, and cost a lot more money. That is not true of wind farms and solar farms. It is true of some instances, and sometimes a nuclear reactor is installed at the rate that it's supposed to be. Not generally in the United States. Okay, let's go on. Here we have a picture of an Aptera. Now, I want to point out that these cars have yet to be sold on the market. But this article is about progress. This article is from Clean Technica. That is, by the way, a three-wheeled car. It's technically a motorcycle in most states. In most states, you don't need a motorcycle license to drive one. You can do it with an automobile license or a motorcycle license, either way. You don't need to have a helmet to drive one, even though it's a motorcycle, because the passenger cab is enclosed. And that vehicle is a lot bigger than it looks. It's probably shoulder height at the top of the roof for most men. You can tell that it's big by the size of the seats inside it. They look kind of small. Anyway, The title of the article is Aptera puts its first production intent vehicle on the road. The production intent vehicle means that it intends to go into production and it's testing it on the road. Aptera successfully drove its first production intent vehicle and will be used for real-world validation and testing. It is a step paving the way for a fully tested, validated production EV ready for deliveries to the company's nearly 50,000 pre-order reservation holders. And that is a car. If you look very closely at the photograph, you can see that there are diamond-shaped things on the hood. Those diamond-shaped things, which you would be able to see on the roof also, and on the back hatch, are solar cells. They are they will produce in Vermont enough electricity to add about 25 miles a day to the car's electricity that's available. I did I filled in a set of data on the company's website and found that if I owned one of these things and commuted, I don't know, 15 miles a day, I don't remember exactly because I did it a couple of years ago, but if I did this, I would add 25 miles a day to my electricity. And I think if I were commuting 15 miles a day or something like that, adding, miles to go to the stores and stuff, I would need to charge this car, which I could do from home, maybe twice a year. The high-end vehicle has a range of 1,000 miles. This is a different kind of vehicle, and it's designed for high-speed transportation, if that's what you want to do. That's 1,000 miles at 65 miles an hour. It's an interesting vehicle. Okay, we're up to Sunday, November 3rd, and we have a picture of a nuclear reactor, a small modular reactor building. And just to the right of center in the picture is a tall, skinny thing, and that is a nuclear reactor. And the idea behind the brown stuff on the right and left is this building would be largely underground. Okay, there is a, this is from the Jamaica Gleaner. Jamaica in this case is the island nation. The title of the article is Why These 14 SMR Falsehoods? ? There are 14 misconceptions often promoted about small modular reactors and their feasibility for small island states like Jamaica. We start with the idea that small modular reactors can be set up quickly and provide fast solutions to energy needs. They can't. This is explained along with other misconceptions. Now, the misconceptions, there are 14 misconceptions. I'm not going to list them all here. A couple of them would require more explanation than I want to go into. But here's what my notes say. They are not quick to deploy. They are not competitive on price. They produce copious waste, possibly more per unit of energy than a standard nuclear reactor. They have negative environmental impact, are unsafe in an island environment. Why? Because there's no way you can put them in a place where you know that they're not they can't be damaged by a hurricane. You could put them on a mountain, but that's not what they're designed for. They lack flexibility, and they do not have mature technology, and they are vulnerable. Now, I was explaining about this to somebody earlier today, and there was one thing that I went into, and that is small modular reactors have been around for a very long time. John Kennedy, President of the United States, I think he was the one who set up a program for the Navy to have nuclear-powered cruisers. Now, a cruiser is a big ship. It's not as big as a battleship, but it is close. And he was setting up nuclear-powered cruisers, and eventually I believe we had 9 of them. All of them were out of commission by the beginning of the 20th century. Some of them were not even ever refueled. And the reason for this is because operating that small modular reactor in that cruiser was just excruciatingly expensive. To have a surface ship powered by nuclear reactor was just too much, unless there was a special reason. And the only reason that was sufficiently important was if it was an aircraft carrier. For submarines, they had a special reason built in. But cruisers didn't have that. So they were all taken offline. They were able to change their output very rapidly, more rapidly than reactors like this thing can, but they were appallingly expensive to run. So we are going on, and we have an article from CNN. That picture is a picture of a lake and forest, and yes, I will explain that in a moment. The title of this article is "What's at Stake on Tuesday? The Planet." It's difficult to imagine a more severe or consequential gap between candidates on a single issue. Scientists are warning humanity has run out of time to deal with an existential global threat. By the way, I agree. One candidate wants to do something about it. The other has said that human-caused climate crisis is a hoax. The reason this picture, it's because the Earth, the planet, is at stake. And that's a picture of the planet, a small part of the planet. Today, I wrote an article about the consequences of the election and my take on it. And I want people to think back to the election of 2016. Donald Trump had a campaign issue that he brought up over and over and over again, and I got really tired of it. And when 2020 came around, he brought it up again, not as often, but he brought it up again, and I was saying, oh my gosh, we've got to stop this. I'm getting tired of it. And the thing that he was bringing up is Trump digs coal. Okay, there was, when he took office, a Dow Jones coal index. It was DJUSCL. That index had hit a high of 745 or thereabouts in 2008. But that 2008 recession, I'll call it, hit the coal industry pretty hard. And by the time George W. Bush left office, it had slipped by about 65%. It was around 250. It might have been as low as 200. I don't remember. It recovered a little bit in the first Obama administration. But in the second Obama administration, it fell to about 45. That's where it was when Donald Trump took office. But Trump digs coal. And so the coal industry and the investors thought things were going to get better for the coal industry. And the coal industry, Dow Jones Coal Index kept its value or increased in value very slightly in the first year and a half that Donald Trump was in office. By the time he left office, the coal index had fallen to about 6. And on the 18th of September, 2020, it just stopped being updated. Dow Jones was no longer keeping the coal index. There is a new coal index, but it's entirely different. Why did the coal index do that? Because Donald Trump might have dug coal, but he didn't help the coal miners. There were about 50,000 of them, a little bit more than that when he took office, and there were about 35,000 when he left. So they lost, 30% of them lost their jobs. Truth is, the U.S. has been gradually getting off coal since before the First World War. It's been over 100 years. In 1922, there were something over 800,000 coal miners. Today, I don't know how many there are, but it's probably, the number of coal miners actually increased in the last 4 years. With Joe Biden in office, there were a few more coal miners. Now, maybe it's decreased again. I haven't been tracking it recently. But the point that I'm making is that Donald Trump doesn't have the ability to do the kind of damage you might be worried about. I'll show you a map in a few minutes, and I'll talk about this more. Okay, we have an item from the Cool Down, and the title of this is New Report Details the Remarkable Impact of Tripling Renewables Worldwide by 2030. Tripling clean energy by 2030 worldwide is doable, despite the recent election in the United States. An encouraging report from the International Energy Agency says, well, if it does, and the United States doesn't, then we're going to be suffering because we're not going to have anybody to sell all our oil and gas to. And we could cut global energy costs nearly 10% by doubling energy efficiency alongside the renewable boost. Okay, again, this means the drill baby drill approach of the Trump administration, if they try to pursue it, might work for a month or two. It might even work for a year, but it's not going to work long term because the market is going away. Okay, I'm going to go on. We're up to Monday, November 4th. We have a picture here of part of the reason why the market is going away. This is a solar plant. Thomas Lloyd Group, by the way, is an Indian company. I don't know much about its history. I can tell you the reason why it's LLOYD, which is pronounced Lloyd, not Lloyd, Lloyd, except in English it's Lloyd. And in Shakespearean work it comes out Floyd, because the LL in Welsh doesn't have a sound that works for it in English. This is from BW Business World. India on way to achieving 500 gigawatt target of renewable energy by 2030. This is amazing. India is on its way to reaching a target of 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030, said Summit Minister of New and Renewable Energy Prahlad Joshi at the International Solar Alliance in New Delhi. Joshi emphasized the historic importance of solar energy worldwide. There's been, solar energy has been used since ancient times, by the way. There are ancient buildings that were lined up to gather sunlight as efficiently as possible during the winter. But this is a huge project, and there is no joking around here. Okay, I'm going to go on. I'm behind schedule here. We have a picture from of a tidal power station in Nova Scotia. This is from the article. It's from Renewable Energy Magazine. Tidal power has potential to address energy challenges faced by Scottish coastal communities. A creative approach to using power that I want to point out here. This article is about Scotland. The picture is Nova Scotia, not Scotland. And of course, Nova Scotia means New Scotland, but the picture is not Scotland. A creative approach to using power generated locally by tidal energy projects could help businesses and homes around Scotland's coastline become less reliant on expensive and polluting oil and diesel sources of power. So what's happening here is an organization has done a study, and they have found that small power sources, like the one that you can see in the picture here, these small power sources can output energy, and batteries can store it, and communities can live off that energy, and they become less reliant on power grids. It's that simple. That picture, by the way, is in an area where tidal power is very likely to be important. It's in the Bay of Fundy, where tides, the height of a high tide can be 52 feet above the height of the low tide. And that's a lot of moving water around. And it happens up and down twice a day, up twice, down twice, roughly. Okay, we are up to the Good Men Project. That is a picture of the sun at the South Pole Station. I don't think I want to live there. As Earth vital signs worsen, scientists warn of, quote, irreversible climate disaster, end quote. Earth's climate system continues to rapidly deteriorate, split infinitive, with global temperatures on track to far overshoot, split infinitive. 2 degrees Celsius, which is 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, of warming by the century's end. The warning comes from international group of eminent Earth system scientists and climate researchers. Sorry about messing that up. Warning, I can't read them. Yeah. Okay, we are up to Tuesday, November 5th, and we have a photograph of a BYD factory. This is BYD Seagulls, and I think, I really don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't know, and one of them is, what are these pictures of cars going down a kind of an open tunnel of light? And I think what they're doing is they are using the light to harden the paint job on the car. I might be wrong about that. Maybe, somebody can explain it better than that. Anyway, this article comes from Clean Technica. BYD added a Tesla worth of production capacity over the past 3 months. A post citing Executive Vice President of BYD says that automaker added production capacity of nearly 200,000 vehicles per month in the third quarter of this year alone. This is more than 4 times Tesla's monthly production in that quarter. In other words, in the quarter, Tesla produced something like 50,000 cars, and BYD added in the same period production for, in the quarter, Tesla's monthly production was 50,000 vehicles, not the quarter's production. But Tesla was producing 50,000 cars per month, and BYD added production capacity of 200,000 cars. BYD is a much bigger company than Tesla. And it has a huge production force in terms of the people working for it compared to Tesla's. And I worry about Tesla. So, I don't know. Okay. Now I've got a picture of something that looks like a wind turbine, but this particular wind turbine has stumpy blades, and it's designed to function underwater. This is from Renews. That's a Maygen turbine. The title of this article is Creative Turbine Tidal Projects Could Bypass Scottish Grid. This refers back to the article that we just talked about, in which, you know, communities could be getting their power from the various power sources around the coast of Scotland. A novel approach to using locally generated electricity from tidal energy projects could help businesses and homes near the coast of Scotland be less reliant on fossil fuels by removing the need to wait for greater grid capacity. Now, this is important. All right, let me continue. A study shows how communities could connect directly to tidal power projects. And honestly, I think this could be done almost anywhere. And also, honestly, with Donald Trump becoming president of the United States, he's going to be appointing the head of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And that means that that commission, which is called FERC, is going to be under the control of his people. That, in turn, might mean that what we need for renewable power to be put on the grid, the way that we want to do it, might be delayed because people are saying we need more grid capacity. And FERC could regulate grid capacity. On the other hand, there's a better way to do things, and that is to have local power generation. And believe me, every state in the United States could produce 100% of its own power, and Vermont, for example, would have to pay out $1 billion a year less. What could we do for $1 billion a year? Let me think about that for a minute. It's kind of hard to imagine what we would do with $1 billion. We could have a big party. There is no need to be importing power anywhere in the United States if we install renewable energy properly. And, you know, I can refer people to studies that have been done by Mark Jacobson, and, you know, he's done peer-reviewed studies on this, a bunch of them. And he said basically the same is true of all countries on Earth. Okay, we have a picture of sheep looking, well, not perplexed. They're not perplexed. They're just curious. This is from Clean Technica. If your sweater feels better, thank an agrivoltaic project. Solar developers are beginning to tap the emerging field of agrivoltaics to help build community support for new solar projects in rural areas. They have a powerful case. Researchers found evidence that grazing among solar panels can help improve the quality of wool. Now, I want to say something here. I know there's going to be people who say we should not be doing agriculture under solar panels that have cadmium or arsenic in them. I'm not sure whether I can agree with that or not. But one thing that I can say is we don't have to ban agrivoltaics to prevent agriculture from being done under solar panels, because less than half of the panels used in the United States have those materials in them. And we can ban using those materials in solar panels that will have agriculture under them. That's an easy thing to do. We can increase output of potatoes, tomatoes, a bunch of other things by growing them under solar panels. And this is something that has been proven by a bunch of studies. Fraunhofer Institute in Germany did them. They found that peppers, certain kinds of peppers grown under solar panels would produce a little bit more, another species twice as much, another species 3 times as much. Species, I should say cultivar. I don't know that it's another species. But 3 times as much if they're grown under solar panels because the plants are damaged by sunlight. There are a lot of plants on this earth that don't like growing in sunlight. And it happens that tomatoes and potatoes and peppers and some other things are among them. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, November 6th. And I have a picture here. This is the map that I warned you about. Here's an item from Clean Technica. The title is $988 billion in private investments connected to the Investing in America agenda. A Clean Technica reader pointed to a website with a map showing where investments associated with the American Rescue Plan, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act are taking place or have been committed. Now, what you see in this map is blue dots, little blue circles, that show where one of those projects has produced some sort of work, a plant of some kind. And you'll notice that the eastern half of the country has got them almost solid, except for Adirondacks and northern Maine, little bit of northern Minnesota. But I want to draw your attention to the area. You can use your imagination. The area of Georgia. You can recognize Florida, and of course Georgia is just north of it. It happens that Marjorie Taylor Greene represents an area that has one of those purple or blue dots. The green dots are facilities that have been installed or are being installed at the expense of private industry to support the blue dots. So the US government has invested almost $1 trillion, and private investors have the US government has invested a lot of money, but private investors have invested almost $1 trillion to support it. Now, the reason I mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene is she didn't vote for this. If the Republicans want to, stop the construction of factories that were financed by Joe Biden, they can try to do so. But if Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to go along with that, she's going to have to explain to her constituents why she's getting rid of their jobs. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe she would do it. Honestly, I doubt it. Okay. The next thing that we've got, I'm going to put that up that way. This is also from Clean Technica, and the picture is checking for thermal leaks. You've seen the cameras that take pictures that are like the picture on that cell phone. Home Boost turns your smartphone into a home energy audit device. Last year, Selena Tobacco-Walla, and by the way, I looked that name up. It's a very rare name. It is Tobacco-Walla, and it's an Indian name which basically means somebody who works with tobacco. It probably means tobacconist, which is a word that they have in England, but they don't have here. A tech executive who had worked for Avite and Ticketmaster founded Home Boost after she discovered that average home energy bill jumped 8% over the last 12 months. Home Boost can turn a smartphone into a DIY energy audit device. And by the way, it costs $99. And I don't know what the instructions say. It might be even that you'd have to return the device after you've used it. I don't know. But it gives you a lot of ability. Okay, and you can cut your energy bills. We have one more article from Clean Technica, and this is a picture of a home charging. I would say probably not in Vermont. In fact, given the license plate on that car, I'd say probably not in the United States. The image comes from Volkswagen. Bidirectional charging, V2G, which means vehicle to grid, could save Europeans, okay, that explains it, $23 billion a year. I should have remembered that this was Europeans doing this. So it would make sense. The car's in Europe someplace. Transport and Environment recently asked a highly respected Fraunhofer Institute to research the economic benefits of widespread V2G technology in Europe. The report found V2G, vehicle to grid, could save Europeans up to $22 billion a year in utility costs by 2040. Now, what is V2G? It means that the vehicle can put electricity onto the grid, if the grid needs it. You drive home, you plug in your car. If the car needs electricity to charge it, it starts charging. But when the grid needs electric power, it can call on the vehicles to deliver electricity to the grid, for which the car owner is compensated in some manner. So this is basically makes all the electric vehicles into batteries for the grid. Given the fall in price for non-vehicular batteries, I would say that might not benefit the grid as much as I thought it would 2 or 3 years ago. Nevertheless, it is something that can happen. Now, that is the last article, so we're at the end of the line here. I want to wish everybody a plainly resplendent week. Nancy has assured me that she will be back next week. I hope that's true. It's a lot of fun to have Nancy here. And so I will again wish you a plainly resplendent week. I think Nancy would think that's very funny. And I will say goodbye. And hope that you're doing well. And I should tell you, I think I did tell you, if you get a telemarketer call, just say to the telemarketer, which means I'm not going to talk with you in English. And if the telemarketer tries to continue in English, you say Oskulukhana, which means please, and follow that with Adihian Sharad Kamraig, which means do you speak Welsh? So, now you really do know everything I know. Have a good week. Bye-bye.